Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Bound by Grace podcast. I'm Amber Hunt. Today's episode is not just about divorce, it's about resilience, faith, and the radical transformation that can come in the wake of devastation. Our guest, Kari Olson, is a Christian business coach whose life took an unimaginable turn when her husband walked away without warning while she was in the middle of battling cancer and raising her children. Kari's story is one of grief and grit, but more than that, it's a testament to the power of divine restoration. She opens up about what it means to survive emotional abandonment, navigate the complexities of mental illness in a partner, and emerge with a new sense of purpose. From the ashes of a shattered marriage, Kari found clarity, calling, and courage to rebuild not just her life, but her mission. Whether you've walked through a similar valley or you're simply holding space for someone who has, this conversation will stir your heart, strengthen your hope, and remind you that healing is always possible, even when the breaking comes without warning. How are you doing this morning?
I'm so good. Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. What time is it there?
It is 2 p.m.
2 p.m. Okay. Yeah, it's 9 a.m. here.
That's awesome.
Well, I'm really happy to have you. I did want to start by giving you the space to kind of talk about what you do for a living now, if you don't mind going through that.
You bet. Yeah, I'm a Christian business coach and digital mentor. I help online Christian women online create income. Starting out, scaling it. I've helped women create over 100,000 in 6 months or less. And just because you'll hear a little bit more about my story, but I know what it's like to struggle, to strive, to barely get by. And I don't want that for a single other person. So yeah, grateful for all it took to get me here and for what I'm able to do right now.
Perfect. So we're going to dive in more of a Q&A style for our listeners. And she's going to share a good bit about her backstory and how it transformed her life and she was able to rebuild. So, Kari, can you paint the picture of what life looked like before everything changed? What were the rhythms, hopes, and challenges in that season?
Gosh, before everything changed, I would honestly say I had what I thought was a pretty good marriage. I had a husband who was supportive. We had 3 little kids. We were teaching Sunday school, living the American dream. He was set up to take over the family business from his mom. Everything was going really well. And we were very comfortable traveling a lot and honestly, kind of living the American dream.
Okay. Um, was there anything in your spirit or relationship that felt off leading up to that moment, or was it truly without warning?
So there was some things. Um, like I said, my husband at that time, he was set up to take over the family business. But he came home one day and said, I was just fired by my mom. I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
what's going on? And of course, I only knew his side of the story. I was trying to support him. So when his mom came to me and said he has bipolar disorder and he needs help, I was like, well, that's very convenient for you to say for firing your son. Like, she was getting ready to retire. We had just put $200,000 into the business and it was just gone overnight.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's kind of when things started to change. I saw almost an instant snap from that point. And of course, like, yeah, that was our livelihood. That was our dream. And so, I gave him a lot of grace. And it was actually pretty shortly after that I received a diagnosis of cancer. So things were a little bit wild, rocky for a little bit. But yeah, I still was not prepared to have my marriage, be completely, decimated overnight.
Mm. So you were battling cancer, raising children, and then suddenly he was gone. What did that moment feel like emotionally, spiritually, and physically?
I it was so surreal. I still look back. I remember it so vividly. So I actually was out running errands. I remember getting out of the car, walking towards our house, and I saw him there. And he had a backpack on sitting on our front steps. And I got to him, he stood up and he said, "This isn't fun anymore. I'm out of here." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about? Yes, I totally agree this isn't fun anymore, but like I'm going through cancer, things are rough, we're struggling financially, like we're going to get through it. It's going to be fine." And he's just like, "No, it's not worth it."
Mm.
And as he kind of turned to walk away, the one last thing that he told me, he said, I just need you to know that I don't believe in God. I haven't since I was 15. I just played along because I knew how important it was to you. And I'm still not sure that's 100% correct. I just think he knew that was maybe one of the most hurtful things that he could tell me at that point, and he was obviously hurting himself. But yeah, he literally turned and walked away, and I just stood there with my jaw on the floor, not knowing what was going to happen. I mean, yes, it wasn't fun. I was sleeping like 16 hours a day trying to recover. Our kids were 3, 5, and 7. Like, that's a really busy, crazy
Wow.
time.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, financially, we had just sunk $200,000 that we couldn't afford. We were kind of hoping on him giving himself a raise when we took over the family business, but we pulled 200,000 out of our house, and now we had really big payments that we were really struggling to meet. So, yeah, in less than 5 minutes, like, everything, got pulled from underneath my feet.
Mm. How did your children respond, and how did you carry their pain along with your own?
I mean, at first, I was so determined. I'm like, "Okay, he's just going through some stuff. We're gonna get the counseling we need. He's gonna get the help that he needs, and we're gonna make it." Like, I'm like, "This is not happening." I was
Yeah.
just no, no way. And so I didn't, really tell them all that much initially. They didn't even know what the words cancer meant. So they knew I was sick and they knew I was sleeping. And then, they knew that dad had gone to stay at grandma's house, but like I didn't have the words or the language or even, I don't know, maybe the emotional capacity to be able to really deal with all of it at that level. So I told them I feel like what they needed to know for each day, for each situation, with still trying to protect their hearts and not put fear into their lives.
Mm.
But yeah, they were hurting. They're like, "Where's dad? When's he coming
Yeah.
back?" I didn't have any of those answers. He didn't have any of those answers. I mean, it was very rocky for a very long time.
Um, did you ever get answers or closure from him afterwards, or was silence part of the wound?
Silence was the biggest part. Um, he did agree to try counseling. I found a counselor. He came one time. He thought that this woman was against him. So I'm like, okay, well, let's try someone else. So I found someone else, and he missed like 3 of the sessions that I had set up that he had agreed to. And, so there was a little bit, here and there, but, I was going through counseling myself then after all of this started. And, I was literally, I'm like, no, divorce is not in my family. I didn't have anyone on my mom's side or my dad's side that had ever been through it. I was like, this is not starting with us. And so I was just willing to do whatever it took. But like then my counselor was kind of like, "Carrie, like you cannot be the only one that
Mhm.
is doing all the work here. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, yeah, you're kind of right. So in the end, I had to, after maybe like 6, 7 months of just him really not doing anything for me, the house, financially, the kids, I had
Mm.
to say, I need some effort on your part if there is any chance in us making this work. And I just remember like exactly where he was standing in our house. And he just said, I can't, and turned around and walked away. So at that point, it was just, okay, I have to accept this and move on and be there for my kids more than anything.
Yeah. Um, Navigating a loved one's untreated bipolar disorder, I mean, it's incredibly complex, right?
Yeah.
What helped you understand what was his illness versus what was the choice?
Yeah, I like literally didn't know much about this. When his mom came to me and told me that that's what he had, it didn't even there was no check in my spirit. I was like, whatever. And I thought it was just a her issue. Probably about 6 months later, things kept getting quirkier and quirkier around our house where he didn't think he needed to sleep. He thought he was writing this
Mhm.
best-selling novel. He was up all night. He slept in the shed in our backyard. You know, like I would wake up to Latin being written all over our garage. I mean, it was just like stuff was like, this is pretty weird. And I knew that
Mhm.
he was struggling. Um, but yeah, he didn't want any help. He actually told me he really liked the way he was thinking and acting, and it helped his mind speed up, and he got all these ideas. And so, yeah, he didn't want help either, by any kind of therapy or counseling. He didn't want to talk to his doctor. He was just like, nope, this is me. Do not try and change me. You need to accept me, love me as I am. And I mean, I was willing to do that to a point, but not at a detriment to myself and my kids and our marriage and my values.
Mhm.
So yeah, there was a point where I was willing to compromise and wanting and praying for him to get the help he needed. But if a person, is not willing to do anything to bend even a little bit more to compromising in our marriage, it was a hard thing to reconcile. But yeah, I had to kind of again know that I had worth. And as a person, I think I had really just been all about peace and like, I just want the peace in our life,
Mhm.
in our marriage. But like at some point, it was not worth it to keep bending and bending and bending. I knew I was going to break.
Yeah. How do you reconcile compassion for his mental illness, um, with accountability for the impact on your family?
Yeah, that is a good question. I knew he was under a ton of stress. Overnight, our dreams had evaporated when he was
Yeah.
fired. And there was compassion. That's really what there was at first. I was on his side. I was like so mad at his mom for firing him. And, just I wanted to give him the time and the space and the love and the encouragement and the healing that he needed. And then it almost got to a point though where I maybe felt like I was enabling it because
Mhm.
he was just out in the shed smoking cigars, drinking. Like I'm like this is not the partner, the father that that he used to be. And so, when it was affecting me and stressing me out and affecting the kids and just really terrible behavior and not being the role model that he used to be. I would try and talk with him. There was a line where I'm like, "Hun, what's going on?" But when I don't, there was a lot of narcissistic tendencies too that I didn't know what I was dealing with. And man, the conversations, I just ended up feeling so like I was just in a tornado of like, I don't even know what's happening here. Things are going all over the place and he's turning it and it's being twisted. And I left every, conversation just like, what is happening? So, yeah, I had to get some kind of outside perspective and help in that area, both for myself and the kids, just to be healthy. Because I think I did really start kind of losing perspective. I kept giving him so much grace, grace and grace and grace until I was just like, whoa, you mean, writing Latin on our garage isn't a normal thing? Like, I'm just like,
Yeah,
think
right.
about that now. And I'm like, Carrie, what were you thinking? But like my friends were coming to me and they're like, this kind of stuff isn't normal. And I was so enmeshed in it that I didn't really see that. I lost perspective. So
Yeah.
yeah, there was a process for sure. And of course, yeah, just I feel like his discernment was really kind of rising up in me at that point.
hmm what were the first steps of healing like for you? Was it survival mode or was it something deeper?
Yeah, it was survival mode for a very long time. I mean,
Yeah.
because instantly, I had a $3,100 mortgage that I could not afford on my own. I was working full time as an occupational therapist, but when I was going through treatment, I took a leave of absence. So I just got what I felt like was thrust back into a full time job that exhausted me to begin with, but I was not making anywhere near $3,100. So then I got a
hmm
second job. And when that still wasn't enough, I got a third job. But that also meant because I was really the only caregiver for our kids at that point, like I didn't have family in the area. I could not, depend on him watching them. The safety of it all was very scary. And so, at some points there were just like moments. I mean, one of my third job was selling doTERRA. It's a network marketing thing, selling essential oils. And I was doing all the home parties and I'd have to bring them with me to strangers' house and set them up on a little iPad and be like, you have to be really quiet while mom's doing this presentation and passing all her oils around and hoping someone buys. And oh my gosh, they hated it and I hated it. And it was just like miserable for all of us. But I'm like, I have to do this. I'm going to do what it takes. I am not going to lose our house.
hmm
So, I mean, that was my intention and it still didn't work. I still,
Yeah.
I worked hard and it still didn't work.
Yeah. Did your faith play a role in how you processed abandonment and found strength?
Oh, absolutely. And this is where, from a healed heart, I can absolutely say, I, yes, it was horrible to go through all of those experiences, but I'm also grateful because the faith that I have now, the level of trust, the relationship and intimacy that I have with the Lord. Like I said before, we were very comfortable, but we went to church, we did the right things. I never had a relationship with him until this. He's
hmm
literally all I had. And so it's beautiful. And I love sharing that because he does redeem and restore everything. And now, I am in a loving marriage and there's just so much evidence of the redemption. And, he does restore what the enemy has stolen. And all of his
hmm
promises are true. And I'm just really able to say that and to encourage other women who are maybe going through the same things and wondering Because I certainly did. Like, oh my gosh, the Bible says this, but I'm definitely not experiencing that. Like, is this even true? And it was a beautiful time of getting to know him, of seeking him, of learning his voice and his love for me. And I would do that all over again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I completely agree. I went through a divorce as well, and I would say that I found really my relationship deepen with the Lord when I had nothing else, and so it was very eye-opening and very loving, and now I have this strong relationship with God because of it, and I I really appreciate what I went through for that reason.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is there a scripture or promise that became your anchor during that time?
Yes. I wish I could remember where and when I first came across this, but I think, it was just I started um, a Bible study at a new church. I joined a new church, and it was the first time where I ever felt Holy Spirit. And I was like, what is this? This is amazing. I just want to be here forever. But it was Jeremiah 29:11. And I know it's a little bit cliche, but when I heard that he has a plan, that he has a hope and a future for me, and that it's good, like I was like, could that be true? It's like
Hmm.
looking around, it does not seem like it's very true, but he says this. And I opened like my mind and my heart to that possibility and to seeking him and just wanting the reassurance that, okay, well, I'm living in a house in foreclosure at this point. Like we barely have enough cereal in the cabinet. Everything seems really hard. Lord, is it true that you have a hope, that you have plans for me, that it is good? And I kept hearing, yes, daughter, I have got you. And yeah, developing the levels of just faith and trust that I have in him. But I literally put that, I wrote it on my bathroom mirror when I would open up my cabinet in the morning. It was right there. It was in sticky notes on the cabinets. It was on doors. It was on my nightstand. Like I had to keep renewing my mind with his truth because my external circumstances kept telling me a very different story.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Um, what would you tell someone listening who's just had their world shattered by abandonment themselves?
Gosh, I would just like want to love them, to want them to know that they are loved, that God never leaves us, he never forsakes us, that he is near the brokenhearted, and that when we seek him first, Matthew 6:33, everything else falls into place. Because I was seeking other things and, just, yeah, God, this is my plan. Can you bless it? Thank you. And that's not what I want out of a relationship with him. I want him to be showing me, by him be opening doors, him to be guiding my life, him to be telling me, go this way, go that way, whatever it is. And just knowing and trusting that whatever he has for me is so good. And so I would just say, I am so sorry. And yes, do everything in, you don't want to have any regrets. So do everything in your power to see if you can reconcile this. Do the counseling, seek the therapy, try and work it out and seek God. Like more than anything, deepen your walk and relationship in knowing him, in knowing his voice, being able to ask him questions and getting those answers directly from him. Like I actually never knew when I was going through this initially, like I could have a conversation, that I could ask God directly a question. I thought, well, maybe, if I'm having troubles, I'll go ask my pastor or someone who's, really biblical, or something like that. But so beautiful. We are his daughters, and just really develop your identity as that, as a daughter of the King, not as like a divorced person or a mom with cancer or someone who just feels sick and broken, but like, who are you? Know that you are worth, the price of his son. Know that you are loved beyond measure. Like, you have to start defining who you are, and then, then everything else will fall into place when you have that relationship, that faith, and the walk with him. It is hard. I will never say it's easy, but you can also live with the promise that he redeems and he restores everything.
That was beautifully put. Um, how has this experience reshaped your definition of strength, love, and family?
Oh gosh. Well, strength, I mean, that is a word. I have never thought of myself as a strong person. And it's a little cliche, but that saying about you don't know how strong you are until you go through something like this. But I also found my strength not on my own, but my strength was in God and who he made me to be, and the promises and the truths that we have from his word. And so, yes, I still feel weak. I still feel broken. I still feel inadequate, unworthy, all those things. But like, when Jesus paid the price that he did on the cross, John 10:10 tells us that he did that so we can have life and life abundant. And so now that's what I'm seeking. I want all that he has paid for, and I don't want to live according to my own definitions of me, because I would still be, weak and unworthy and, all of those things that I used to say about myself. But I want to see and walk in the truth and the promises of who he says I am and the life that he has for us. Because it literally is so much better than we could ask or think or imagine when we just keep seeking him, when we know his goodness and his heart for us. Like, he is never, just not with us, never not moving behind the scenes. He is always working, making ways, opening doors, telling us and guiding us in good paths. So yeah, I've also learned that you need to just keep taking that one next right step. I wanted to know the whole entire pathway. I'm like, nope, just tell me, Lord, like, what does this look like? And it was a very control thing that, I wanted. But you know what? His plans for us, again, Jeremiah 29:11, his plans for us are good. Like, just keep trusting. And, even when our humans, our exes, our, husbands have broken those promises, just know that he is someone that never does. You really have to separate those two things from the wound of being rejected, abandoned, broken promises, and just knowing that our loving Father, he never does those things. So I just had to keep reminding myself of those truths, declaring them out loud, plastering them all around my house, but then also like capturing the lies. There were just loops and stories that kept going in my mind about, oh yeah, no one's ever going to want you now. No one's going to want to marry you. You're divorced. Like, you're not good enough for anyone. Like, those were just lies from the enemy. So really, like, a huge thing too is just know whose voice that you're listening to. Is this mine? Is this the enemy? Or is this God? And I just think it's like a friendship. If you were to pick up the phone from your best friend or sister or mom, like, you would know their voice. But like, for someone, and for me initially when I was reading the Bible, I'm like, this is really hard to understand. Like, I don't understand this. And, just keep giving it time, keep asking, like, Lord, just download what you want me to know from being in your word, from, reading these stories. Because the hunger that we have for him and seeking him, like he's way more excited about that. And he's like, yes, I want to give you all the good gifts. I want you to know my voice. I want you to hear from me. And he says we do. My sheep know my voice. So we just have to start with that understanding. And I just kept declaring that too, because I'm like, well, he never speaks to me. And I mean, obviously, when I kept saying that, I just kept reinforcing that lie. But when I'm like, nope, he says my sheep know my voice. I'm one of his sheep. He's my shepherd. He's got me. I can hear him. Like I just had to keep telling my mind and my brain, no, I do hear from him. And then we do. So it's been a crazy walk in just seeking him, finding him, listening to him, and taking that one next right step. But it's been so good. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, I love hearing stories like this. If you could sit across from your past self in that moment of devastation, what would you speak over her?
Well, the one day that really stands out to me as maybe one of the biggest, devastations was, I mean, definitely the day he left. But probably about 3 years later, we were still living in our house in foreclosure, and we had been through 7 sheriff sales. And this is where the sheriff comes to your house. They literally hand you the papers so that they know that you got it. And they're like, ma'am, this is the day we're putting your house up for sale at the, county courthouse. They're going to auction it off. And I was like, oh boy, okay. So I had already been through that 7 times. I knew that process. And for those 7 times, I would call the next day. I would be like, okay, I've got 3 kids. We need to pack. I have a whole house to move. Like, what is the day and the time that I need to be out of my house? And it's generally about 6 months. But when I called, they're like, oh, let me check. I'll look through the papers. And 7 times it fell through unexpectedly. They're like, I don't know what happened. We just don't have records. And I'm like, this is really weird because you're dealing with lawyers and mortgage people. And just like, they're like, I have no explanation. And every time I'm like, gosh, that's weird. But by about the 7th was when I said, God, is this you? And so I walked out my back door that morning. By then, again, it was 3 years later, let the dog out to go to the bathroom at 7 a.m. I'm still in my pajamas. There's the sheriff again, and he's sitting on my patio furniture waiting to hand me the papers for the 8th time to get this whole process going again. I was like, okay, here we go. But that was the straw that somehow broke the camel's back. I remember when we had dinner that night, we were having our little peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and that was the day that I had to tell the kids, like, we're going to be moving. I'm, really needing to save all of our money for rent. And so we're cutting out all of your activities, basketball and dance and gymnastics. And for a child, like, that's pretty devastating. And even though it was July, I thought I somehow needed to add, and you're getting one Christmas present, and I don't want you to cry about it. So I just saw the fear in their eyes, and they didn't say a word, but I knew that at that point, I just was failing them as a mother, and it was heartbreaking. That was probably the most heartbreaking day. And I ran to the bathroom as fast as I can because that's when I really started to break down and crying into the towels. And at one point, I don't even know how long I was in there, but my youngest daughter, Amelie, she came and she knocked on the door. I opened it up and there she is. And she's standing there with her little pink cheetah print suitcase and she unzips it. She said, Mom, we're going to be okay. I have lots of things for us to sell for money. And she's pulling out her books and her Barbies and her seashells and her rocks. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this sweet girl. But my youngest daughter should not have to worry about saving our family. So that was the night that I was the most devastated. I was on my knees. I was praying to God after they went to bed. And I'm just like, it's yours. I give up. I give up control of my life and my businesses and my job and my kids and my house and like relationships, everything. And that's when I felt like, honestly, things started to change and come around. So, to that woman who was on her knees that night, I would just say, oh my gosh, like, seek him. He's good. He does have plans. Like, just fully run after him. It like I had to let go of the way I thought things should be. Oh, if it's not working, you just work harder. But no, seek him first and everything will fall into place. So that's when kind of our financial trajectory started changing. I met my now husband like 3 months after that. Like things just started to come into place because I put him as the number one thing that I was looking for, not safety in money or, a relationship or what I could do, but just surrendered and submitted everything to him and just was in obedience to taking action in doing whatever he told me to do, even when it didn't make sense. I'm a super logical person, but like, even when things didn't make sense, I have just learned that he knows way better than I do, and I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, I definitely can speak to that. You just need to lay it all in his hands, because once you try and control it, that's when it's almost like you're out of obedience to God and things don't go the way you're wanting them to go, but you lay it in his hands and stop trying to control,
Yeah.
and his will would be done. He has great plans for you. That's why I always say that I am thankful for unanswered prayers, because his plan was so much greater than I could have imagined.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I really appreciate you being on with us today. For anyone that's interested in getting into business coaching or being helped by business coaching, her links will be in the description of our video. But is there anything else you'd like to share before we close out?
Gosh, I feel like I've really shared a lot of my heart, but just have hope. I think that's maybe one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
I felt like I was really in a hopeless situation, physically, emotionally, financially for so long. And yeah, for sure, like walking through a lot of hopelessness and honestly just depression. But I've also learned since then that like anywhere where I don't have hope, most of the time we're believing a lie. And we have to know what that is, deal with it, replenish what's going through our minds and our hearts with God's word and his truth. And just know that, yes, even though it may not seem like he has a hope and a future when you're living in a house in foreclosure, barely making ends meet. But like he's working and he's so good and you can have hope. So yeah, just don't be afraid to dream big, to seek him, to go after everything that he's calling you to, because those are the desires that I feel like he has planted in us from even before time began. So yeah, just keep looking to him, leaning in and taking the next right step.
Yeah. I appreciate all of our listeners. Again, thank you, Kari, for being on and sharing your story. It's definitely one of resilience and great faith, and that is always something our listeners need to hear. And I'm sure they can resonate with, or at least motivate them to seek out God in their time of need. If anyone wants to get a hold of Miss Kari, again, her links will be in the descriptions of all the videos or audios. If you would like to reach out to me, you can get with me through boundbygracepodcast@gmail.com. And then we have boundbygracepodcast.com for all of our guest spotlights and books that we have, and anything that you want on there is pretty much all on there. So I really appreciate everyone and hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you again. Bye.